Good evening, everyone. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And, well, what would be the news of the day? That would be maybe the Twitter files. Ooh. I wish I could just hum the X-Files theme at this point. I'm not even going to have it as a theme for this video. I have something else in mind, which you'll hear obviously before you read this or see this. Anyway, on the night of the impending bombshell that was Elon Musk's bombshell, I was watching everybody's reactions to it as the countdown, and people were like, "Oh, excited! Oh, I can't wait! What this is gonna be! Oh, this is gonna be! Oh!" And I'm like, "Yay!" And so after being late an hour and 49 or so minutes, when people were wondering, "Where's Elon Musk? Where is Elon Musk? Hashtag Where's Elon Musk?" He appears in a puff of smoke, and pretty much retweets somebody else's retweet of what had occurred, this bombshell. And there's a laundry list of all these points emphasizing that the Biden administration, the Biden presidential campaign, because he was not president yet, that Joe Biden, who was not president nor vice president, used his vast influence to ask Twitter to suppress certain portions of a story, and the Twitter agreed. Twitter offered both campaigns this. And while Trump's campaign wanted something to be also removed, they decided not to do that for them, but honored it for Joe Biden. And, the outrage of this is because of Twitter's personnel evidently was a lot more Democratic or liberal-minded or progressive-minded, however you want to put it. They said yes to Biden and no to Trump. And, again, people were like, losing their minds, flipping their wigs, and gleefully, just euphorically, orgasmically, just excited over this. This is a sheer scandal. They're suppressing the information. They're suppressing the Hunter Biden story. They're doing it. This is election interference, I tell you. It's election interference. Oh! Impeach him now. Impeach him. Impeach the world. And I'm like, So you have to read through this. And I wanted to be fair, so I did actually post this on my group, Middle America, that my buddy Vin runs and I mod on. And because I am a progressive person, I still want to be, make sure that people understand I just don't go one way on certain things. And besides, President Biden is not my favorite person, so it's not as if I'm crying tears of blood of this. So, we posted that. But as I'm looking at this, while everyone else is losing their minds, they're thinking this is like the silver bullet, the trigger, the smoking gun, every other metaphor of arms that there is. I'm still looking at this and going, okay. For a few reasons. You look into the details of this and how, they went so far as to block Kayleigh McEnany, who was Trump's White House spokeswoman, person who dealt with the press. And they removed her from Twitter during this time while she was posting a New York Post article concerning Hunter Biden. And what was said about it was the company initially said that they did so because the article that she was posting also included emails and phone numbers, and whether the article did or she did on her own, which I can understand, which that is actually understandable. However, the guy, one of the people that was running Twitter at the time, Dorsey, later commented that the that the standard that they used on that wasn't quite right with that. So take that as what you will. So what would you have is like a governmental conspiratorial collusion between a media platform and a government entity, even though Biden was not in the government, but be that as it may, conspiring to suppress this information. And this is some... To hear the people using the adjectives, how this is worse than Watergate, given what may have been actually suppressed about this, is very funny. But what I did do, because I wanted to think about this before I threw up this video here and giving you my opinion on this, is I wanted to also give the point that if this suppression, whatever the suppression was, if this was continued after Biden was president, meaning that the White House was using its influence to suppress this information from ever seeing the light of day, then that is misuse of an office, and that is a clear impeachable offense. Anything prior to that, I do not know if that's really impeachable. Because as soon as this came out, not even a minute after someone looked at the first line of the first part from this laundry list, it's like, oh, impeach him, impeach him, impeach the world. No, I don't think that's the case here. Now, we don't really know what we saw from this bombshell is the apparatus between Twitter and the Biden campaign, and the back and forth that they had, in the agreement of Twitter removing pieces of the story if it ever showed up on Twitter. We don't know what the information is. And as we've been going from day to day into this, and all this excitement and so forth, hoopla that everyone's having over this, I'm beginning to notice something. We have not heard a single lawsuit, a single, quick order injunction from the White House, from White House lawyers, from Biden's lawyers, from Hunter Biden's lawyers. We have not seen any legal activity to prevent this from happening. Because it's not as if Elon Musk wasn't broadcasting and promoting this to happen. He spent all day, enticing the people, wetting their whistles, and making them anticipate what could this possibly be, this bombshell. And then released it. So we don't see any lawsuits. We're not seeing injunctions. We're not seeing... Because for some of the stories that involved around Hunter Biden, you could have made a claim from the Biden administration that some of this information could be construed as national security, especially concerning parts of Hunter Biden's story involving Ukraine and Burisma, and the stories involving, biolabs. That if any of that was dropped into this bombshell, that, living assets could be affected by it. So that would be something that someone would show up and says, hey, I got badge. You're not doing that. National security. None of that happened. I think our people are just going a little overboard on this anticipation, and they're just amped up about it. Because, again, frankly, we do not know what it is. We just know that Elon Musk revealed that there was an agreement between Twitter and the Biden campaign to not promote this story. on Twitter. And a few things about this. The Hunter Biden story, whatever he was doing with Ukraine, to his personal issues involving drug use and various pictures or whatever, that was not really suppressed to the public because we've heard about it for the past 2 years. Where's the violation of the First Amendment that, they're suppressing this information? People will not be able to know from this one single goddamn social media platform. That you can find this story anywhere. Now, majority of the media who was when asked anything about this story prior to now, downplayed it, misconstrued it. Now that's true, because they were downplaying it. They were calling it Russian disinformation. That someone would say that the laptop didn't exist, and that could be false and fallacies right there. But again, that's not quite suppressing. Suppression would mean that we would hear none of this. That this information would be black bagged and sent away, that we would never hear from it. But no, it's not. You know, I don't want to do like these equivalencies between various people. You know, if I bring up Trump, for instance, I don't want to be like that knee-jerk about going to Trump as a whataboutism. But I want to make this point, whether it's a whataboutism or not. I just want to make it. So allow me. If it was Trump, through all the scandals we have heard about, through all the legal issues that he's had, from domestic, governmental, from the January 6th committee, Trump at every point has done himself to whine and complain on his social platforms that he is able to be on, while his lawyers do their best to keep him out of a courtroom and outside of a deposition chair. I probably pronounced that horrible, but deposition chair. So they won't get him to sit. You have media shows after shows from Fox News and so forth. Whenever it comes close to the question of whether Trump should sit down and do some testifying, Trump allies would go, "Oh no, he shouldn't do that because that might get him to a perjury trap." And we all, and we outside of the tunnel in the bubble here is like going, "You worrying about him in a perjury trap? Does that mean that you were worrying about him lying?" But at every single point that he would fight and find another appeal, and another appeal, another appeal, he would do lawsuits preventing him from getting anywhere close to a courtroom. He's taken this all the way, with his taxes at least, taking it all the way to the Supreme Court, and they've denied him. And they said that the House can look at his taxes. But we don't hear that from the Biden campaign, the Biden people, Joe Biden himself. You'll hear denials about any of the stories that comes up to them, and but denial is not suppression. Even lying is not suppression, really. Suppression is you not hear a word, you not hear it. That is denied, and if anyone dares to do it, there will be repercussions. Financial, legal, criminal. There are people in the world in our history who's far more corrupt, that any situation that get anywhere close to this, there would be threats from the government to make sure people were quiet. Some of those real, some of those imagined. And then people would go and have this reaction upon, the Biden campaign and Twitter having this agreement of them to suppress this information. And this is outrage. This is a scandal. This is the most corrupt we've ever seen. Ever in our government. And I hear all this and I go, are you new? Really? This right here is the most corrupt? It almost reminds me in a way of Bill Clinton, and how they finally got able to impeach him was because he lied about a sexual relationship with his intern. He said, everything else we can't quite get him on, but we can get him for that. And after a while, even the public turned. And we're tired of the Ken Starr report. And we're tired of this and tired of that. And even when he got impeached, he was still popular as hell. But it reminds me of that. The reason why it reminds me of that, is the way that people just are grasping at anything. Anything. And whatever it is, blow it up into mythical proportions of how awful and corrupt it is. And the funny part when I hear about, this is election interference. This is election interference. And then I go, really? This is election interference. This right here. Because for the 2 years, and I've been around from the group that I'm in, Middle America. We are not left wing. We're right. We're not right wing. We're like everything and nothing. So we got a lot of point of views in there, and there was a great gauge of people in there, all intelligent, all conscientious, who believe one way, believe in the other way, and have different values in terms of their politics. But you can kind of gauge which people were interested in Hunter Biden and which were not. And I will give you a little hypothesis, I will give you a little theory that if this information had gotten out onto Twitter, even though it was out everywhere else, but if this had gotten out onto Twitter, it would not have changed the results. Why? Because those who were already voting against Joe Biden were the ones that were most interested in the Hunter Biden bullshit. While other people would go, oh hell, that's horrible. That's horrible what Hunter Biden is alleged doing. That's terrible. I'm glad he's not on the presidential ticket. Because so far, even if you take in the Hunter Biden story, whatever Joe Biden is involved, it is so indirect that you can't really lay a claim on Joe Biden directly doing anything, except for on the peripheries, like saying some associate of Hunter Biden has met Joe Biden, or so Joe Biden met some associate, etc., etc. But there's not no direct line to anything. So it becomes a story about someone who's not running for president. That the person running for president has father. Whatever he had done was not done directly under his name with his signature or anything like that. People will say, well, he was out there in Ukraine, selling his, the influence of his father for money. It's like, it's terrible, because certainly Donald Trump has never done that. Again, what about him? But we went through 4 years of Trump and his family, and we've seen instances of either Trump family members or those in the Trump orbit, literally selling time for people to be around Trump. Selling the interest of Trump for their own benefits. And his benefits. And whoever wanted the favor to get next to Trump. So yeah, it's pretty much, if that was okay for Trump, then what's the issue with Biden? Well, we know what the answer is. Politics. But here's the thing, though, and here's the grander scope of all this, which is concerning. There has been a campaign waged by individuals on the right. And once again, I make the point of saying individuals because I'm not going to lambaste everything on the right. As I've said before, doing that is so lazy. And it's so easy, too. Just, the right did this, the right did that. The same thing, people go, the left did this, or the neo-left did this. But certain individuals on the right has spent time for the past 2 years, 4 years, from Trump administration to the 2020 election to after, sowing the seeds of amping up distrust of the government. Now that's like a laughable term because, most wonks, let's say that. Most people who are political wonks who actually spend the time spending hours out of their lives to look at politics, to watch it on TV, just flipping on their phones to little articles so they can post and so forth. Stuff that I do. I mean, I'm certainly not immune to that, and people that I know do. But people who fan the flames of political, governmental distrust and media distrust, and make it bigger and bigger and worse, and everything, every little thing, any minutia that you can pick out, a stray word here, a phrasing there, that goes, proof that there's corruption between the government and the media. They're not telling you everything. Which again, I have to ask you, are you new? No one here, not me, not people that I know, no one is saying that the government is always honest, is telling the truth upon everything. The media isn't always, honest and above board, especially now with the media as it is in its incarnation now. I can try to wager a guess that when back in the day of Walter Cronkite, that when they're just showing you the news, this is the news, you can kind of trust, at least from their point of views, what they're giving you. Like they give you the news, leaving it to you to interpret. But the news is no longer the news now, isn't it? The news is, Fox News or MSN or CNN or Orion or Newsmax. Or it's a podcast. News media geared for political ideologies, looking for people who follow that ideology to be their supporters, to watch them, to give them ratings. You take a piece of news that comes out. Well, if you watch the nightly news, your local news, you'll get the facts, you'll get what is reported. You take a piece of news, same piece of news, take it over to Fox News, they'll run the news, then they'll spin it to the right, have some analysts or expert, articulate it and spin it in a way so that you can understand from their point of view. So that skews that way. Same piece of news. Take it over from Fox, you move it over to MSN. Same thing happens. Follows the news. Here comes the analysts. Here comes the experts from the progressive wing of it. Doing this spin in that direction. I mean, if you had like a split screen between the two, you can see them saying the same exact words, but the tone and inflections will be different because they want you to perceive it in a different way, even though it's the same exact words. But as that back in the day, like the Walter Cronkite, back then perhaps you had a little bit more understanding and journalistic integrity, until it became all one way or all the other way for the 24-hour news cycle, because you just have to spit out news as much as you can find it, and without going like the full world news route. But it's not as if the government and the media has not worked together from one angle or another over the long decades. At least as long as there's been the advent of television or the advent of radio, really. Think about, as an example, the days of the House Un-American Activities, of the Red Threat, where government from senators and certain elements of the intelligence community was hunting out the commies in the United States, looking into like Hollywood and writers and just blacklisting people, making them go to their committees so they can testify, whereas they will either ruin their careers or ruin the other people that they implicate in their careers, whether they did anything good or bad or not, or even were communist or not. And while that was happening, certain media outlets was promoting that, enhancing that. Walter Winchell, for a time, jumped on the bandwagon of Joe McCarthy and Roy Cohn. So he would promote these committee meetings and how they were just stomping on the communists, that Cohn was a commie-catching comet. And it would go like that up to the point where the House of Un-American Activities had the Secretary of the Army testify, or the representative of the Army testify over certain people that Joe McCarthy thought were communists. And what killed the career of Joe McCarthy and killed Walter Winchell's continued backing of the Red Threat and the communist hunting was when the man looks at us and says, "Senator, have you no decency? At long last, have you no sense of decency?" Stick through the heart. But that goes back all the way then. And when you think of it, thinking of other times, so the government has done things that either had the media blacked out so they wouldn't even hear about it, or tried to make sure they never were able to report on it. I mean, check out the Pentagon Papers sometime. Check on Ellsberg and what he found out, what they actually thought of the Vietnam War. That going into the Vietnam War or being in the Vietnam War was not going to be winnable. But they had to stay in it. They didn't. But for the sake of the geopolitical politics of the Cold War, and that spanned Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon. They did that. Then, of course, Watergate, and so forth. We have a long history where either the media or the government did the Potomac two-step and be in sync with each other and what they want the people to hear, or what they want the information to disseminate to the people in whatever wholesome amounts that they want them to do, or the government tries to black out the media. I mean, this goes from our past to Edward Snowden on up to our current day. It's not, when you think of us being gullible upon this, we're not. We know. Many of us who are Cold War kids here, we remember. Sometimes the government and the media works together to do a hatchet job. Sometimes they want to bury something. Sometimes it's even worse. When we talk about, like, the border, from Biden's horrible handling of it so far to how Trump did it, where was these people who were like so happy to hear about this suppression agreement between Twitter and the Biden campaign? Where were they when adults were separated from their children? Where these children were sent elsewhere, to the point where the head of the Department of Homeland Security didn't even know where they were. That there was no paperwork to have a framework to reunite people. Where that adoption agency, some run by Betsy DeVos, was anticipating adopting out these children that were separated. Where women, migrants, were taken to these facilities, were forced to have hysterectomies. Bucky Bell. The media was kept away from these places a long time. Even when they demand to be there, and they deny them, throw these people into black site so no one can go in there. And when I just mentioned Buck v. Bell, 95 years on the books, I already did a video on it, so I'm not going to go into elaborate any further on it. However, again, when you want to talk about government and media, why isn't it anybody in the media ever asking a question about Buck v. Bell? Why is it not a question? Why is that not a question to a senator, to a congressman, to a justice? Democrat or Republican, because no one says a word. No one even asks the question. It's bad enough not getting an answer to a question. It's worse when the question should be asked and no one asks it. And to circle this back around here, this great information, this bombshell that was being suppressed, what was it? Because as I said, this Hunter Biden story has been out. It's been out for over 2 years. It's been talked about since before the 2020 election. It's been talked about around the time of Trump having the perfect call with Zelensky. And we have elaborated as to what he meant from that point on. So, what was the suppression? Could it be the suppression being that the Biden campaign, Joe Biden himself, did not want pictures of his son, whether he was under the influence of drugs or not, pictures of him naked, or pictures of him in compromising situations with one person or another person, doesn't even matter. What if it wasn't even political at all? What if it was just, a father not wanting his son to be further humiliated than he already is? Because again, I don't know, campaign-wise, that this would hurt the Biden campaign for the Hunter Biden story to be out. Because again, the story of Hunter Biden was all over the place. They were talking about it before the campaign for president of the United States. Some people thought that Joe Biden wasn't going into the campaign, wasn't going to throw his hat into the ring because of the Hunter Biden situation. Remember, he didn't jump in immediately into the presidential race. He came in a little later. So what if all this excitement, all this drama, this emotion, this waving about from various people who wanted something to go after the Bidens, anything, like they did to Clinton, anything. He did not have sexual relations. Got him. That's it. What if all this is the suppression of pictures of Hunter Biden? What if that's all that is? And as much as you want to make it into this big conspiracy of this governmental misuse of taking over a media platform of a private company that makes the First Amendment doesn't even apply to it, over a story that was already out there, already circulating it. The blood was already in the water for the piranha. Now, again, I do throw it out that if you can prove the suppression of this information, whatever the information is, be it dick pics or not, if you can prove it past the point where Joe Biden is president, then you have an impeachable offense. Here's the thing, though, and this affects the midterms. In fact, I dare say this could be because of the midterms and how the midterms results are. The Democrats have the Senate. They even gained a seat and are on the cusp of gaining a second one, meaning that they will have nullified Manchin and Sinema going forward. The Republicans have a majority of 1, 2, 3 houses, to the point where policy-wise they are as ineffectual in pushing policy as the Democrats were in 2020, where we won the White House, we won the Senate, we won the House, but the majority was so small in the House. It's so tiny, razor thin. One vote, and that vote was Kamala Harris. That there was no way of pushing real serious policy without compromise. And in this day and age of our polarizing partisan one way or the other, compromise is a dirty word. It's the 8th word of the 7 deadly words of George Carlin. Not really, because George Carlin would be all in favor of compromise if it actually meant something, but he didn't believe in government anyway. But the House, with the Republicans taking over the House, we have the vote for whoever's going to be Speaker, Okay, they can do that. They can play musical chairs with committees. Who's going to be the next committee head? Oh, January 6th. If Jim Jordan gets in there, oh, it's going to be all about Antifa. We'll forget about the whole Trump stuff. They will be able to control the purse. So perhaps our giving over of money to Ukraine is not going to be as thrifty as we were beforehand. So that might actually shrink down into nothing unless Ukraine could give these people a good reason for us to give them support. The Republicans can investigate. And even as I talk about this issue, I would still welcome them to investigate this. Because what else are they going to do? What policies can they push that will not die in the Senate or die from a veto vote? Veto from Joe Biden. And they can also impeach Joe Biden. Maybe not on this. They could try on this if they want to, but again, I don't see it. They could try to impeach him. Maybe they succeed. But 2/3 of the Senate is required to convict and remove. And as the Democrats understood that when they impeached Trump twice, you can enjoy saying that you've impeached Joe Biden and yet Joe Biden will still stay in office. So what do you have? What can be done here? All you can do is make noise. So investigate. Use that as the campaign for the next person to step up on the Republican side, be it Trump or DeSantis. Make that into your campaign for the next 2 years. But here's the thing. Same as with Clinton. Sooner or later, people are going to get tired of hearing it. They got tired of Ken Starr. They saw the impeachment come and go. They still backed Clinton till the end. And if it hadn't taken the Supreme Court stepping in and stopping the vote, Al Gore would have been the vice president, would become the president instead of George Bush. And boy, how things would have been interesting. And maybe not gone down the way that things had gone down. But going back to, and I'm going to kind of land the plane here on this idea. The grand issue is, at least for me, is that all this stuff, be it Biden and Twitter, or Trump, or how the Republicans and how the Democrats are all acting, and how polarizing we are in our own camps, we are in decline. We are circling. And it's only going to get worse, because here's the thing. As I said, there's nothing really to be done about this except making noise. That noise has the tendency, depending upon who's hearing it, that could lead to violence. I mean, things get worse and things happen and people respond to it. You hype people up to hate the other side so much and how the other side is screwing them over, that they are the victims, not the person telling you, but they're the victims, and what are you going to do about it? And maybe out of 1,000 people who hear that and get pissed off and says, yeah, and then, say something or tweet something or whatever, maybe one of them maybe more than one, decides to do something about it. And that is incitement. And again, it's not getting any better. It's not getting better one way or the other. Because I don't know how we can just be a hardcore Democrat or hardcore Republican. If you think the system is so wrong, working into the system doesn't work, because no matter how much the Democrats want to say something about being progressive, they also want to keep the status quo. There's no young talent. There's no idealism. There's just they want to play the safe route, do all the hits in order to limp their way across the finish line, and then rest on the laurels, and then maybe we'll get things working, but maybe not. And the Republicans are almost in the same boat but different ocean, because they have this problem of having to appease to a fan base that was not responsibly catered to or told the truth, told facts. They were given a bill of goods over and over again, and then when the bill of goods turned out not to be true, not to be factual, they just said, it's their fault, it's not your fault, it's certainly not my fault. They intentionally just pissed them off. And this fan base then looks at the politicians and says, you're going to follow that, right? You're going to follow that, right? You're not going to do the other thing. You're just going to do that, right? Right? So politicians who know better, who've probably been in office for decades, have to cater to the extreme. So they can't be reasonable. They can't compromise, because if they're compromising, well, then they have to be rhinos. And so they don't get any support. So responsible people who know better goes and pushes whatever conspiracy theory, tinfoil nonsense, so that they can at least sound like a certain person, so they can garner the support of the people that support that certain person. There is no autocorrect. There is no reversing course from this. Not when both sides are in this deathlock between their own supporters, or playing lip service to an ideology without giving it any backbone, and just limping along with the status quo. Something is going to happen in this country as a result of it. We're only getting worse. Remember? You remember back in the days of the Clinton era, where it was it was a scandal that Clinton had a joint, but he said he never inhaled. And then you got Bush, who made it on cocaine. You almost can clock it from there on the downward slope of things, really. So, in conclusion, ladies and jelly spoons, I believe the suppression of the Biden campaign and Twitter, as quoting Shakespeare, is sound and fury that signifies nothing. You want to make it into a big, grandiose, horrible conspiracy? Do it. Do it. Fine. Republicans going to investigate it? Fine. Do it. That's all you can do. That's all can be done. So, you want to hear about this in the next 2 years? You're going to hear about this for the next 2 years. Whether, the mainstream media is going to follow it or not. Either the MSNs and CNNs are going to downplay it, or just, wave their hands on it, while Fox News and OAN and Christian Mingle or wherever else is gonna say this is worse than Watergate. This is scarring the soul of of Americans everywhere. That makes the baby Jesus cry. You'll hear about that too. The ranter rants because the urge to rant is always rising. And I'll see you at the next travesty of humanity. Or something. I don't know. See you later.